Well, man, I'm ready to peel
Yeah.
back the layers from Kentucky to New York and in between. So let's get into the gray area. I'm looking forward to getting into the brand new album About Time and your career, but I want to begin that journey with
Yeah.
6 years ago. This pandemic was raging, taking a toll on
Yeah.
everybody, changing our lives. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you create and roll today?
Uh, Technology.
Yeah.
For me, I think everybody was scared to death. I know I was. I didn't know if I was going to. I had friends that were hospitalized, near death, and others that did die during COVID. And it was just like that early period. It was just such a scary thing. And I didn't know what was going to happen to my career. I didn't know if there was going to be a career going forward. And so I started trying to think about what I could do. And at that point, um, I started putting together my home studio and really, investing in it and getting into video. Because my plan was if there are no gigs out there, I have to express myself somehow. I need to get it out and I need to play. And so I'm thinking about the technology of remote sessions where people would be at their own homes, and that didn't seem to be totally working at the point because of the latency, the delays between the different systems. But that was a thing that I was looking into, and I was looking in learning video editing software. I was learning how to use a video splitter for multi-camera shoots. And what I wanted to do was to really have a high quality. I've always been to quality in terms of sound. And, I was really underwhelmed by, people that would just set up their iPhones and record it. I mean, it's nice to hear the music, but I really wanted to think about, okay, how can I make this sound really professional? And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And I've got some I've got some recordings on my YouTube channel, and we're in my studio where I'm sitting right now, which has these big sliding glass doors, and we had all this air passing through. We were all wearing masks. I had one guy, a sax player, set up behind. I took a screen door and then I put plastic on it as to kind of protect from the virus from traveling if he had it,
Yeah.
just trying to isolate as everybody as well as we could and get this airflow through here. So I had some sessions and I have some pretty good recordings from that. At that time, it was a single camera, but I've got a few videos on my channel where we went ahead and, got together anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was quite a time. So, speaking of time, About Time is your
Yeah,
latest album, getting great
yeah,
reviews. I've really enjoyed
yeah.
it. Talk to
Thank
me
you.
about putting this album together. You're typically a studio musician, and you're out here on your own doing this. So, talk to me about this album.
Okay. Um, it's funny because before this is my first album
Yeah.
of my own, and I've recorded on so many other people's albums, and I never really thought about that I had something to contribute to the music world because I wasn't a composer.
Yeah.
But I'm playing on everybody else's album, and I'm thinking, well, I'm playing their music. And so anyway, the initial idea, kind of what got me thinking, was a friend of mine and one of the best piano players I've ever known is Enrique Anene. And you've had him on your show.
Yeah.
And we've played for probably on and off for the last 10 years. When COVID came around, I didn't see him for probably 5 years for that. And then because we did have a regular gig together, like a monthly gig in a town just north of New York City. And we had a regular jazz gig where we played a lot, and it was just a lot of fun. And so we ended up getting together. I called him for a gig and it got rained out. Then I called him for another gig and we got together and played this gig and it was so much fun. And playing with him, it feels to me almost telepathic. It's maybe it's because he's a drummer as well, but our phrasing and our feeling about it's just really been kind of it's really something. And so I finished this gig, and a lot of times you finish a gig, suddenly you're kind of depressed that the gig is over, and what do you do next? And I thought to myself, I got to document this. This is really something special that we had together. So that's where it really started from.
Yeah.
And the idea was I was planning initially to do in a trio. So I start really developing this idea of a concept. So now I'm at a point where I'm mentally committed to doing this. And so I started, conceptualizing. You start with that. You start with what are the tunes? What are the players? How getting the right players that you think, because the six of us never actually played together. So there was a lot of conceptualizing about doing this and picking tunes that I thought would make a nice format. And, I think I kind of had the idea that the tunes that I would pick, some of them are very, they're jazz standard classics. And there's others that are really not so classic. They're, Billy Drummond's tune, Dubai. Alan Pasqua, I mean, he's like one of my favorite piano players, and I'm sure a lot of people have not even heard of him.
Yeah.
He played with Alan Holdsworth, he played with Tony Williams, and he's done all these, and he's just a marvelous writer. And I did two songs off of that. So I'm assembling this stuff, and and the next thing is I've always been into production.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that when I listen to an album, I really like an album that's got a certain amount of spatialness. It's got a good sonic sound stage to it. And those are like some classic ECM records. And there's some pop albums that I think are just amazingly well produced. So I start thinking about that. I start looking for studios. I'm looking for how the room is designed, what comes out of that room, listening to some recordings from the room. And so I picked Samurai Hotel in Astoria, Queens. And the other part of that was I got a bass player. I heard Sean play on a Richie Morales gig in just outside of New York City. And another friend of mine had been in a class with him that he was teaching. Anyway, I'd never played with Sean. I hadn't played one note with him, but I just knew that this was going to work out beautifully because I really trying to conceptualize how he's going to sound with Enrique, how the three of us are going to interact, what's kind of important, really researched Sean's recordings, and just a marvelous bass player. He's just one of the best. And he was very busy in New York City, so I wanted to get a place that was kind of centrally located. Enrique's in the Bronx, Sean's in the city, so that would be convenient for them. And then as I start listening to more songs and tunes that I might bring, I'm hearing some different things. And I heard, tenor sax, trumpet, flugelhorn. And so I have worked for a good time with Shunzo Ono, who's just a brilliant player and composer and arranger. And the Stella by Starlight is one of his arrangements that we played together back in before COVID. I was in his band and we were playing gigs around here. And Stella by Starlight was one of the tunes. And it was just so much fun to play and adventurous, and such a nice twist on the way he expanded and contracted the harmony part, the harmonies and the chords progression in there. Just a really fun tune to play. So I was hearing those guys, and Matt Garrison is just a great tenor player and soprano, and uh, I really liked his approach. There's sax players out there that just got tremendous amount of chops, and they always want to like throw a lot of things in there. And I wanted somebody who was more of a Joshua Redmond sound. It kind of, have just conceptually, I just knew that he would fit in well with Shunzo, and those two would interact together. So now I'm up to 5 pieces. And then I thought of Highway 14, and I could hear this vocal part in there. And I had just uh, had Ruby Puccillo, who's the vocalist on the album. She's 24 years old when she came into the session. I met her when she was 22, just got out of college, heard her at a jam session where she sat in and sang and just tore the place apart. And she's just incredibly capable and somebody to watch
Yeah.
in the future. Um, so I heard this part. I said, Ruby, would you come and just do this? And I thought, well, this one thing is just not quite enough for this. So, and she's got a huge book of tunes. So, I thought Alice in Wonderland is really a kind of a cool diversion. And anyway, so I just basically put all these things together, and it took me 5 months to get them all in the same room at the same time for 2 days. And a couple other interesting things about this album is we did that album having never played together, having never rehearsed together. And we did a few takes of each tunes. We did a couple or three takes, but the overdubs, there was no overdubs, and there was nothing like that. It was all very interactive, and that's really exactly what I wanted. I really wanted everybody to just be relaxed and to come in and bring their own creative juices to this project. And they all brought it, and it was just great. And Samurai, I can't really say enough about that recording space, because the soundstage and Dave Stoller, who owns it and runs it and mixed and mastered and edited the whole thing, just did a great job. And the vibe in this studio is, they turned the lights down, and I've got some videos on my channel also from doing some of these recordings. So that's kind of it. I just wanted, I think it came out really pretty good. I wanted authenticity. I wanted it to speak to jazz traditions. And I really had in mind the listener. That it wasn't just going to I tried to have a nice varied kind of format and a program for it. And even I spent so much time even thinking about, what tune, what's the sequence of tunes on there. So, a lot went into it. It was a really good learning experience for me. I think, because I've always been on the other side of recording, and not the person that conceptual from beginning to end designed something. So, I was pretty happy with that. It was kind of a big risk,
Yeah.
It's always a risk. You never know what's going to really come out, but
Yeah. It's a good
tons of
risk.
thought.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You've been at this for a while. You started out in Kentucky. You're in New York now.
Yeah.
What do you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What's driven you all these years to do this music?
Um, well, that's a good question, and I think it's just the high that I get from making this music and being spontaneous. I happen to like practicing, and I like coming down here and just practicing. But I think the thing is there's something emotionally that I get out of it. Um, I, that's really it. I just love music. I just love it. I don't know that I could live without it.
Yeah.
In fact, I did live without it for a while. Um, I had a bad thing that happened in my life, and my wife got cancer, and I had to take some time off from it. And she ended up passing away, and I never really totally got away from it, but I did for a bit. And then I came back, and it's just what my life is about. It's kind of what it's always been about. It started back, when I was really young, and it's just been something that's been in my life all this time.
So one of the cornerstones of whether you're a listener or you're a musician is one of the first live shows that you see. It can move you to other places. What was the first live jazz show you caught that blew you away?
Um, hmm.
If not the first, one
I
of the early ones.
Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Wow.
That was huge, because I happen to be left-handed. I play left-handed on a right-handed kit. I don't know if you can picture that, but the drums look the same like everybody else, but my hand is over. I don't know. I don't know if this looks like my right, but it's my left.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and Billy Cobham, and the energy that those guys had, and the way they interacted together and fed off of each other was the thing that just blew my mind. And I said, that's that's the essence. And in fact, that's one thing that's carried over into my whole idea concept of playing is if the band members are not listening and having a musical conversation, it doesn't feel like music to me.
Yeah.
And it just feels like I'm just spinning my wheels,
Yeah.
um, or I'm working to make a buck. And sometimes you have to do that as well. But I think it's that interaction, and going back to the beginning, and that's what Enrique and I really have a lot of. And he's not the only one. There's so many great players up here, and and they're all fun to play with, and they all bring their own unique identity to it. But yeah, that was the one that I think really, Frank Zappa was also like compositional kind of thing, and execution, musical execution, just incredible. Those are some of them.
Yeah. So you're stepping out after being behind the scenes all these years. It's your first solo leader gig. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, everyone on the bandstand, all of the fans, but you run the show. What's your
Yeah.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Ooh. Um, I've never really thought of myself as I've always considered, there's this whole idea of like talent versus hard work, so Einstein thing, genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. And I've really worked hard at it, you know, and I really, my older brother was also a drummer. So when I started out, he'd leave the house and I would go up and play on his drums. And that was one of the reasons I ended up being left-handed. But um, I just, I think of myself as a good person, and, you know, um, and striving to live in the moment, in every moment. And I think that's been kind of an important thing about playing music is staying in that moment. I think in sports they call it the zone, um, and in music, to me, it's being in the moment and getting all the noise out of your head, and so that you can just be open to taking in everything that's going on at each moment. That's a difficult thing to do. And I practice at that all the time. But, you know, and my friends around, I mean, most of my friends are musicians. Um, and I don't know, I think there's a healthy respect among us all. And, you know,
So, about time, what are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album?
I've always been drawn to, I've always been drawn to albums that are epic, that take you on a journey, that there's a flow to it from beginning to end. It's like one tune gets exciting, then the next tune brings you down and lets your brain rest a little bit. And then there's this different flavor. And it's kind of like a journey. And I wanted to really come as close to that as I could. And I took some of the most beautiful tunes that I know that uh, were done so amazingly well in the beginning that there was a risk for me to think that I could own up to what the original artist did because they're like classic tunes. And I feel like, you know, if you just do it the same way, it's not going to feel right. So I guess to answer your question, really, I want them to feel like it's something that's not a one listen wonder, that it's something that they feel like they come back to it, it makes them feel good. And it's enjoyable to listen to and to continue listening because it's like chapters in a book, and going to the end. And then there's a resolution at the end. And, you know, the way it starts and the way it builds. And so I really took a lot of that into consideration, that it takes them on a journey like a novel.
So, if anybody wants to get a copy of the album, download it because I know they can stream it, but
Yeah,
it's something that will benefit you, catch you live, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
right. They can get a CD if anybody still owns them, um, at John Clay, the number one bandcamp.com. All of that is reachable from my website. If you just johnclaymusic.com. From there, I've got links to go to streaming services. It's on all the streaming services. It's on Bandcamp as a CD or digital download. Most people are uh, streaming, you know, listening, you know, radio airplay even. It's been doing well with the radio airplay. We're on, I think I'm at 45 on the top 50 Jazz Week chart, which
Yeah,
is respectably good.
yeah,
NACC, I think it's at number 4 now. It's
excellent.
like um, Roots Report, I don't remember, at 9.
Okay.
So it's doing well. It's getting some, you know, it's getting some airplay, and I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Well,
I got a really great publicist to help get it out there. Her name's Carrie Gaffney. I got to plug her.
oh yeah, Carrie's great. Absolutely
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Well, we're going to do our part. It was great to finally talk to you. I've seen your name float
yeah.
back for so long. So thank you for imparting your wisdom and your story and taking a minute out, and continued success on the release.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you
It's
bet.
great.
Neon Jazz.